Sorry,
Thank you
everybody.
all for your patience.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to April 2024. We're in the midst of planting season, and so we're a little bit more scattered than usual, but this is the Urban Ecology Collaborative. We are a group of practitioners, researchers, and organizations that work on urban forestry, and we meet as a community of practice on the third Wednesday of every month at 10 a.m. to discuss urban forestry and related topics and kind of support each other during busy urban tree seasons. So we were going to have a city forester for Bath, Maine, Jack Hernandez, giving a presentation about what he's up to in Bath, but he seems to be out in the field. So we were going to have a discussion about where we're at with tree planting season today. So anybody who might have an update for us, feel free to unmute, raise your hand. It seems like maybe Evan's going to go first, but Clara, did I cover it? Okay, great. Go ahead, Evan.
All right. Yeah, so I've chimed in before, but my name's Evan. I'm an urban forester with Casey Trees here in DC. And yeah, our tree planting season is well underway. We've done some great installations on right-of-ways, schools, residential, all over. Yesterday, a great new partnership kind of came to fruition with Rebuilding Together. They're a nonprofit home remediation organization, and they're nationwide. But they have a department in the DC and Virginia area that we were working with yesterday at a home in Ward 8. And we were able to kind of integrate with them and with their, interior of the home remediation scope of work. Now we're going to be trying to evolve that partnership towards being their tree planting contractor for free of cost to the property owner. So, stuff like that, we're definitely trying to ramp up and find more of these partnerships to get more trees out there in the best way possible that we've been doing for years and years. So just wanted to give an update on that. That's what we're doing.
I'm clapping with excitement and I'm unmuting, so I'll speak on behalf of Tree Pittsburgh. We're also deep in our tree planting season, and actually today we have a fundraiser. It's called Pot Palooza. Palooza, I can't say that word right, but we have over 70 people coming in today to uppot thousands of trees. At the same time, we are planting all across the city and the county, in the schools. We're doing fruit trees. So everybody, the office is it seems empty because people are both planting and transplanting at the same time. So we also have there's a lot of Arbor Day stuff coming up, but personally, I've been doing, you may have heard me present on the relief plan that I've been working on in a community called Belts Hoover. So we have a really large planting of 20 B&B trees. I think we have about 20 ladies from Alpha Kappa Alpha coming to join, and so many community members. It's going to be a really huge block party. Hopefully, we're also hoping to communicate climate change and heating costs for people in the community with this planting to go just a little bit farther than just engaging people in planting. So that's what we're up to at Tree Pittsburgh. It's really an exciting planting season. So anybody else, feel free to go ahead and share.
Well, just for the recording, I know I said this a little bit before we started, but I actually work for Mass Audubon. I'm their urban ecologist, and what we're working on in Boston is actually part of our Nature in the City program. And we were able to launch kind of a community organization coalition in Boston for tree planting on private properties where they've seen most of the tree canopy losses in our 2014 to 2019 canopy assessment. So we were able to launch our first round of granting for community-based organizations to access American Rescue Plan Act, and it's going to be Inflation Reduction Act funding. And we were able to do our first round of granting for the ARPA money. We have 5 projects that are all very different. We did not set like a specific per tree cost or a specific size requirement of what trees need to be planted. We also did not set a very specific requirement that each project hire an arborist, an ISA certified arborist. So this week we're actually doing planting trainings. We're doing 2 of them. One of them with a dear friend, Rich Persiletti, who is the tree warden in Northampton, Massachusetts, and he's also a big part of the Massachusetts Tree Wardens and Foresters. He's going to be helping us do kind of a train the trainer model where we will be kind of taking folks who have applied for funding and we'll be level setting across how we're going to plant and maintain and inspect the trees that we're planting with this Boston Tree Alliance funding. So I wish my colleague Amara Chittenden was on the line. Maybe they are. I'm not sure. I can't see everybody. But if they are, then maybe they could put the Boston Tree Alliance link into the chat. But we're really, really excited that we're able to kind of influence urban nature and wildlife through trees as kind of charismatic megaflora in the city of Boston, where we really have not had that private land canopy loss addressed, especially in the environmental justice neighborhoods where there are already community-based organizations who've been trying to plant trees for years. So we're really excited to fund these projects. And we had over 70 new tree requests without even really trying to like promote that form. So people are really responding well to the program. We also have our 20 trees that we got in yesterday. We did bare root, root bag, and we're going to try to get at least one B&B tree on the site to show people who are less experienced with tree planting, like what do we mean when we're talking about these stock types? What do we mean when we're talking about differences in quality from different nurseries, and how far in advance do you have to order your trees for them to actually arrive on site for your project? So that's a little bit of an update. For Arbor Day, we're doing I think it's about $30,000 worth of work at the Boston Nature Center. We have some we have some sugar maples that are legacy trees that are kind of in distress, and we're going to have Hartney Graymont out to do some air spading and some heritage tree preservation work on those trees. We'll also be showing some preschoolers and some kids kind of what that work looks like and what an arborist is. So I'll bring my climbing gear for show and tell. And I got some Arborwear t-shirts for Arbor Day, so I'm sure I'll be very excited to share pictures of our events with UEC afterwards. And Clara, this is just making me think like maybe we should have a little form for people to submit their favorite photo from this spring planting season to the UEC, and we could make like a little collage or something. But I'll stop for now, and anyone else who wants to let us know what they're up to this spring, feel free to go ahead.
Such a beautiful idea. Phil put something in the chat. Phil, would you like to unmute and say what you had in the chat?
Yeah, I wanted to call out Stephen Harris, who's with us today. Hey, Steve. We don't often get experienced arborists like him on the call. He's been a board member of the UCFS, the Urban Community Forestry Society, and he has been, he's worked in nonprofit sector, cooperative extension, and now city forester for Syracuse. And I see in the abstract, Steve, it says that we'll talk that a municipal forester's journey of promoting his passion for all things trees to his community, and topics of inventory and assessing beyond simply gathering metrics, and creative storytelling with the data, and the relentless pursuit of funding. I think all of those are things that you could relate to, Steve. Do you want to introduce yourself and share with this group?
If I must. I mean, hello, everybody. And I try to come to these regularly, but we haven't checked into the sessions in a while. We're going through the same thing everybody else is, using the same stock types and using all the dollars we can get. ARPA's coming to a close and IRA is about to kick in. And we're trying to advance trees through contractors and workforce programs and all the different slices of the pie. And I don't know if those bare root trees that Erica ordered are the reasons why we couldn't get all the species we wanted this fall, but stop doing that. You're taking our bare root trees. They're New York State Nursery. You can't have them. I gotta imagine that availability is continuing to become an issue for people. on an exciting front at SUNY ESF, they recently interviewed and hired a new urban forestry professor. And when we saw her present on campus, the research that she shared with us was focus group research on why nurseries are growing or not growing what they are and how to change that. Deb Hilbert's her name, and she's working in the Mid-Atlantic right now with some cooperative research work on something similar, and I hope that yields some results so that we can all have more stems and types of trees. I don't know if I answered what you wanted me to, but
you need to talk about channeling your inner Lorax, Steve.
oh, well, now our forestry division has grown, so now we have has grown. So we have a community forester now, Claire Carney, who is in charge of the planting plan. Recently returned from MFI, maybe with some people on this call. And we have a landscape architect that does design review and permit enforcement, and those were two huge wins for our division to help us just be better at what we're doing. So now there are other Loraxes, which is so important for mental health.
Steve, my trees did come from New York State, so
Yeah.
I may
So I
have
hold that against you.
I may have thwarted you, but it was only 20 trees, so
Okay.
it's not too many.
Yeah.
But I have been hearing really great things about the nurseries up there, a couple different ones, and yeah, it's a good place.
One thing that we have been doing is a lot of Missouri gravel bed trees, which is the bare root tree growing in the gravel. And there's a local grower that's doing that, and we don't have a contract grow with them. We put out a bid to purchase Missouri gravel bed, and he started doing this right when the county started paying to plant a lot of trees for stormwater. They cost twice as much as bare root trees that we get from Schichtel's nursery or Chestnut Ridge next door. But the real-time ordering that we can do, so that's so important. We can say 2 days in advance, we need 25 trees on this day, and they deliver them to our workforce program. We wouldn't have that workforce program without bare root and gravel bed trees. And they're starting to grow bag, which I know a lot of communities are starting to do. So that's very helpful too. Tim Winskis, when he was at the Natural Resource Group 20 years ago, said, "Don't have all your eggs in one basket," and I took that to heart. So we try and buy from as many different places as we can. That's all I got.
That's really amazing, Steve. Yeah, one more thing that I just am curious if you are looped into is the Northeast Seed Network. They seem to be kind of doing something similar to Deb. I feel like Deb and Eve Allen should connect. But if you look up the Northeast Seed Network, it's a collaboration between like EcoHealth Global, which I'm not as familiar with them, and a Native Plant Trust in Massachusetts. And they've been having these quarterly meetings about seed stock. They've been having nurseries present. They've been really forming these working groups about nursery availability, and they do recognize that they need to be talking to practitioners who are actually planting the trees, and like why would you need stock to be a certain way. So we can send out the Northeast Seed Network link into the UEC follow-up email, but it's been something I've really enjoyed looking onto. They have actually recently released a map through, it's called the Ecotype Project, and it's a map of nurseries, and it's like got other things besides nurseries. Like, I don't know if it's people who are like seed collectors who are not necessarily nurseries, something like that. But I'll send that out in the follow-up, and it might be interesting for this group just because it is Northeast focused. They had some people from Canada. I'd be very interested in hearing from there. I met some arborists in Ontario last year, and they really have a lot of good things going on. I know John McNeil is presenting in a lot of places and presented at the World Forum for Urban Forests and in DC. And yeah, I think it would be interesting to just focus on this region and think about climate adaptive plantings. And Danielle, I've seen your hand for quite a long time. Feel free to jump in, Danielle.
Yeah, I mean, what I had to share, I put it in the chat, which is like kind of a deviation from where the conversation just went. So I can hold off. I just didn't want to forget.
No, don't hold off. Go for it. We're not sticking to the script today. We're going anywhere we need to go.
Sounds great. So I did, when you were talking earlier about how you're holding some workshops to help people learn best practices for planting trees and stuff, I did also wanted to direct everyone on the call, in case you weren't aware, that the Forest Service does have a really, really great website called the Vibrant Cities Lab. If you haven't explored it before, it is one of like the best snow day rabbit holes you can go down. There are a ton of really great resources. They're all free. We have English and Spanish. We're working on making sure that we have more and more resources that are translated in Spanish. And so I just wanted to make you guys all aware that if you need additional resources for holding your own workshops or wanted to point one of your partners in this direction, Vibrant Cities Lab has some tree planting resources. So I put the link in there. And then we also have a publication called the Tree Owner's Manual, available both English and Spanish. We have hard copies in our field offices. I think I maybe have like 1,000 left in my field office. I'm happy to send out or hand deliver if I happen to be in your area. But we haven't figured out ordering more, but we have some if you want them. And so I just wanted to point out that your local UCF project manager or program manager with the Forest Service has a lot of resources to help you with this. Shameless
Thank
plug.
you so much, Danielle. Hearing this, I'm actually very curious if I could come up and get some of those from you on Saturday. If you happen to be around.
You could if I was around.
Oh no.
But let's connect offline because I'm sure we can figure out something.
Great. Awesome. Thank you, Danielle. That's a beautiful website. I've already sent it to all the staff at Pittsburgh. Don't want to wait any longer. Does anybody else want to share something about their tree planting season or what's happening? Or anything else, apparently. We could talk about.
I have
things.
something to share as well. So recently we've been running into a bit of a hurdle with getting community feedback throughout the planning process for certain sites. So like parks and certain sites, we found that, you know, we're not getting pushback from the PO, the property owner, during the planning process, but getting community engagement and trying to get as many people involved in these plantings that live there has been a hurdle. We have gotten a few, you know, a good fraction, but we want to get more. So just kind of wanted to put it out there into the ether. If you all have any suggestions on, you know, throughout getting this, you know, outreach process going and getting more people engaged in our mission, which is to plant trees and restore canopy. What's a good way to, you know, really integrate the community that lives there in the process?
Yeah, that's great that you bring that up, Evan. I was gonna, like, right before you were talking, I was thinking that I had seen someone who I met rather recently on just a virtual call was on camera. Dr. Lenwood Heyman is with us on the call today. I'm not sure if Dr. Heyman wants to say anything, but this is really something that he knows a lot about, I think. And yeah, Dr. Heyman, is there anything you'd want to say in response to Evan's question?
Well, first, good morning, everyone. Erica and Clara, it's good to see you all again. I see some of my other colleagues on the call. Phil Rob Bell just spoke up. Danielle Gift, I see Bay Hanson's name. So just saying hey to all my people. Evan, I would very much like to engage in additional conversation with you if that would be
Absolutely.
helpful. My primary interest in this regard is, I don't know about interest as much as it is an investment. I would like to hear more about the community that you're working with, and to get a little bit more insight into the history, so that way, you know, I can make, if I can make some recommendations, then, you know, it can be based on that. But otherwise, um, certainly consider me as a resource, and an individual that's willing to help out on this particular issue.
Thank
So,
you.
yes,
Thank you.
indeed. I'll put my my email information in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I must say we struggle. Same in my particular position, I have that same challenge. And, you know, not to answer the question on behalf of Dr. Heyman, but from what I'm experiencing on my end is the partners that I'm working with, I've had to really build a good relationship with people who are from the community, who are serving the community, who the community trusts. And that's taken some time, and it's still continuing to take time, because it's not like I just show up, plant this tree, and leave. I have to figure
Right.
out genuine ways of engaging. But I know it's a much deeper conversation which needs to be had based on the context of what you're experiencing in that community. But one thing on my end that's been helping is, through this relief planning process, we're able to really develop good relationships with the steering committee before you start bringing in trees, having people vision what they want to see in their community before the planting process has been helpful in at least building those relationships to help with bringing different groups of people out. But we still struggle, even after all of that. It's not everybody comes out. But if you have 5 people and a mother with her children who show up with a mulch, I think there's winning for me, and there's winning in that. And
Yeah.
then going deeper to be more, yeah, just more genuine and authentic in those interactions in those communities. So
Right.
I'm also looking forward to hearing what Dr. Heyman shares. Maybe you could present to us in a future talk, Dr. Heyman, if that makes sense. Yeah.
It's fine. I would very much like to do that. Absolutely. To Clara's point, just really quickly, one way that I like to think about in this particular context, in terms of how the Forest Service interacts with the communities that we serve. I'm in the Baltimore field office, by the way, and when we consider the investment that planting a tree should be, or the investment that it represents, showing up and putting something in the ground and then leaving, not saying that that's what you all are doing, but just from a contextual perspective, it's very much of a long-term investment that is a bit of a relay investment, because usually we don't get to see what is the phrase, we don't get to stand under the shade of the trees that we plant, right? And there, to me, I see a significance and an importance in acknowledging the ceremony of a tree planting, and then bringing in the community, the surrounding community, whether it's those 5 people like Clara mentions, or more. The ceremony of it is essential. It's kind of like a naming ceremony for a baby, or perhaps a baptism. It's to symbolize, yeah, I'm invested in the growth and in the nurturing of this particular tree. And I'm also aware that the ground into which I'm planting this tree, it has a richer history than what I'm currently aware of. And I'm trusting you, the surrounding community, to first allow me to work with you all and to serve you all in planting this particular tree. But it's also a matter of demonstrating that, just as you would a child, if you're going to show up at this sacred ceremony, It's meant to display that you are invested in the longevity as long as you are allowed to be invested. A lot of times when entities and institutions, external entities and institutions show up, we're met first by the name of the institution or of the entity that we work with, right? And there's a history that comes along with that. Having been a professor in community health, usually it's not Lenwood showing up, but first it's the institution, then it's my school or department, then it's Dr. Heyman before we even get to Lenwood or just, at the most personal level Wood. That takes some time, as Clara mentioned. I'm almost positive that none of this is brand new. But in terms of where I would come from in our conversation, Evan, or, when I have the privilege to present to you all, that's my basis in terms of community engagement. It begins with community investment, right? Before I hand off my child or a child, right, which is a tree, before I hand off the child to them, it's important to make sure that there are resources in place, and specifically, which goes underappreciated, the psycho-emotional resources that are in place from the community and the willingness to join the partner in with us in taking care of this tree or this forest. So just some ideas. Clara kind of gave me the alley-oop on that. So hopefully I was able to,
You did for sure. Yeah. Dr. Heyman, thank you. And I definitely want to touch base with you at a, in the future and kind of pick your brain on this. But like, yeah, at Casey Trees, we do kind of similar to what you're describing, like an opening remarks, opening ceremony to kind of shed light on the site and what we're all about. And so I think we're aligned in that approach, but definitely want to hone in on that and get it better. But I also want to get better, from when we do this initial outreach to the leasing office or to the community manager, whoever it be, like from that point to when we plant, like place a buildup of like anticipation for the community, and I don't know exactly how we go about doing that because the way we've been doing it before is we do the outreach, we get the plan approved, and then the planting plan approved, and then we loop in our communications and development team, and they work with the community on the best ways, various ways to get the community engaged. But we're trying to brainstorm ideas on, signage on the site or like a listserv or what have you. I think there's a lot of different ways to do this task, but definitely would like to get with you again and talk about it.
hit me up, man.
Yeah, for sure. I got your email here. All right.
I love to see the connections forming, and I hope you guys have continue the conversation and come back and let us know what you put together. A couple thoughts just as you've been talking that came to me were just about how sometimes we're perceiving, and like sometimes as I'm working personally on different projects, it feels like outreach is binned into a separate task from like the arboriculture or the project management of a tree planting initiative. And with forming this alliance of organizations for the Boston Tree Alliance, I've been involved in like direct calls from private landowners to myself, even though there's technically supposed to be multiple organizations in between and things like that. And the thought in my head right now that I'm thinking about, so this isn't a fully formed idea, but one of the thoughts is just that sometimes people were requesting things that the project didn't call for. So how do we make funding match what people actually want and what they're actually desiring, rather than what a grant maybe that was a few years old said that people wanted at that time. I mean, people move fast. Trees don't move so fast, maybe, but people are thinking about things differently now than they were when ARPA first got released. And I'm already actually seeing this with some of our residents in Boston who are calling and they're like, I would plant 5 trees. I would love to plant trees, but I don't want to plant trees until someone helps me with this tree that's scaring me because it's over my house and it's harmed me in some way. And I really want someone to give their advice on the health of my existing trees, which are where most of the carbon is stored and which is where actually most of the benefits of preservation of tree canopy are coming from those older trees. And so people are asking us for help with that. And we currently cannot help them with that. We have to direct them to the treesaregood.org, like how to hire an arborist. And then it kind of feels like they're on their own rather than like being able to be helped by this alliance. And that's kind of why we've set up it as an alliance, because there's maybe potential for maintenance of existing trees to eventually become something that we can work on, like through corporate donations or some other funding streams. But one of the big challenges I've been experiencing is like, how do we address community needs as they're contemporaneously being expressed to us if the funding is limited to tree planting initiatives? That's just a big question. I don't know if anyone else has experienced that or has the golden ticket for the solution on the call. That would be cool if you did.
I want to speak, but I want to let somebody else unmute just in case somebody else in the room is able to say something about what you've just shared.
Hi, everyone. Since someone else is, I'll just unmute myself. My name is Faye. I'm Director of Green Infrastructure, Community Forestry at our organization at the Greening of Detroit. And so thankful that I was invited to this group a few months ago and haven't had a chance to actually join. So I don't have a long, like a systematic answer, but what we have been able to do, because our grant funding is specific to funding our staff, right? Our program, we do have staff that have technical experience, and so even if we can't do it right away, most of our team will say, I'll reach back out to you, or they'll take the time to go and visit that tree. It's not a formal process, it's not a formal program, but we are trying to answer that question. And even if it's not part of our mainstream, like, okay, here's a line, call this phone number, someone's automatically going to come out and be like your formal arborist. But people just oftentimes we have residents that ask about a tree and we're like, well, it's alive and it's doing okay. Or we might suggest, like in Detroit, we have an Improved Detroit app, which is really what's the term, service-based response, but it's not systematic. And so that is something that we're trying to think about, but on the individual basis, which is probably not meeting all the needs of like our 600,000 plus population, we do try to have those conversations as they happen or within the next like month after the planting season is completed.
I love that, but somebody goes to see the tree from your organization. Sometimes people just want to just have someone to speak to initially and just express that out first, like as a human being before going into the technical response. I know with the IRA funding at Tree Pittsburgh, we actually included like a fund for home care for like pruning trees, because anywhere we go, the first question is, this tree is going to fall on my house. And you have grandmas and people can't really prune their tree. They need help. So that was included in there, but we'll see how it's going to roll out, because over the years of doing the work at Tree Pittsburgh, I think the staff have been collecting, some staff here have been collecting names of people who want their trees pruned. So I think it's across the board. If you can't address the initial need, it's hard to move on to now let's plant a tree.
We also have a workforce development program, and some of our folks have started businesses. And so, which is kind of, what we like to see as well. And so they can work with them directly outside of our organization, so that they don't have to call someone in the suburbs, because they just won't understand. They, like you said, they just want to just talk to folks. And the city of Detroit did have a pot of money that would address dead and dying trees on private property. They had to, it was really big. We shared the, everyone, it was on the news. We shared it. They had to close it very quickly because there was enough signups for all of that. So I don't know if that's going to be an ongoing thing. I kind of doubt it, but that did try to serve to meet that need, because there are a lot of dead and dying trees in people's backyards, and whether it was planted by the previous owner or the tree of heaven that planted itself. So it is definitely a big concern.
Thank you, Faye. We have 10:41. Are there any other burning thoughts people have about anything we're talking
Well,
about?
I was just curious if anyone wanted to see kind of around this park that I'm out at right now. We're going to be looking at this little 1 acre piece of land by a pier. It used to be a pier in Fall River, Massachusetts. So I'm 2 hours south of Boston on the coast. So this is a coastal park, and I'll try to flip my camera around so you can see that I'm at a different area of the park than what we're going to be looking at. But this has been planted before, and I found this this little thing, this memorial kind of post put in here, and I was just wondering, like, maybe I could read you guys this memorial that's attached to this tree by the coast, and it could be kind of related to the conversation about community engagement and how this poem is actually about fish. It's not about trees, but these trees are near the ocean, so there is a connection there. Are people okay with that? I'm seeing Clara nodding, and yeah, Lenwood, you're good with that. Okay, so this is just nailed to this tree here, and it says, "In memory of Raymond L. Navarro, December 17th, 1934 to December 5th, 2021." And it's called A Fisherman's Prayer. It says, "I pray that I may live to fish until my dying day, and when it comes to my last cast, I then most humbly pray, when in the Lord's great landing net and peacefully asleep, that in his mercy I be judged big enough to keep. Amen." And that's just on this tree in this park, and I just think it's such a wonderful way to memorialize a person. And a lot of these trees don't have the perfect structure or the perfect mulch ring or the perfect pruning, and this one's looking a little bit dead right here, but it's not harming anyone, and we're kind of in a unique habitat here in the Northeast, and this is a place where people come to recreate and fish. And in my job today, I'm kind of going to be advocating that we make more of space like this, or maybe plant more trees here, more native species that are salt tolerant. And there seems to be like a veteran statue, and coming around the corner here, you're going to see this really big bridge. And this is just a place where it really feels like something's been done to improve the community, and I don't think it would feel this way without the trees. So maybe just as you're going about your planting season, just thinking about the future uses and the future memorials that the trees that you're planting could be part of, for people, whether they're by the sea or not.
It reminds us that we have to teach people to fish, right, rather than feed them. Yeah. All of us are educators, and and we've been admonished for not engaging the community in the planning process, right? So you're out there walking alone. Wouldn't it be great to have a whole team with yourself walking with you? That would be our goal, right? Bring out a crowd everywhere we go.
Well, right after this, 11 to 12, the crowd is it's scheduled for shortly after. But if all of you could come, that would be cool too. We should have a UEC in person again sometime.
Erica on recon. She sure looks it. You look the part, Erica.
What you're talking about, memorializing folks and family members and people, is reminding me of the Black Forest. I think we had that talk by Ikene Ijeoma last year, and I've been trying to connect with him, but I know he's been doing this project from MIT where they're planting trees on behalf of folks who passed away during the pandemic, who mostly were Black and brown people. And that had a lot of people coming out, because people will plant a tree to care for their loved ones. Actually, one of my community partners mentioned, we don't have a cemetery close to here, but I would want to plant a tree for my grandma. I would care for that tree if I knew that doing this is in her memory. I was really moved. She just kind of randomly said this, but it connected me to this other, the ceremony that we're talking about, like what is the purpose of this and how do we pull people, how do we move with people to be able to care for those trees after they're planted. I've just put the link to the Black Forest. He did a presentation. I just put it in the chat in case anybody wants to check it out and connect with them. I'm hoping to engage with him in the fall and see if I can have a group of, different community folks really doing a tree planting that's part of commemorating their loved ones that they may have, lost along the way. Right, Erica, everybody, we're 10:46. How are we feeling? Is there any final comments? Erica, you want to say any final things before we wrap this up?
Well, no, just thank you everybody for coming this morning, and sorry that we didn't have the presentation as advertised, but I think we have a wonderful discussion every time anyway. And tree planting season can be really stressful for practitioners who are in this field as well. So just if Arbor Day is coming up and you've got arborists working for you, field guys, field crews, other urban foresters that can't be on the call today because they're out planting, people doing extra hours, just think of them extra and maybe have a little celebration for them after if you can, and then we'll see you all in May. I don't have my computer open, so Clara, I don't know what we have planned for May, but I know UEC always has something good going on, and we'll try to get Jack in. I really do want to hear a little bit more from Maine. My first exposure to forestry was in Maine. My first internship in 2014 was with a timber company in Maine, so I would love to hear from Project Canopy, or they send out this really cool newsletter, Trees on Main Street, and it's Maine like MAINE. So we'll try to reschedule Jack.
I think we do have Jan Santerre on the call. I know she loves being called out, but make sure she is the state coordinator for Maine and one of our can I say most experienced and elder statesmen in our community of practice. So Jan, why don't you share what your activities are as a state coordinator in Maine and introduce yourself. Uh-oh. I'm having problems hearing. Sorry about that.
You may need to maybe you could put it in the chat if you want, Jan, or test your mic. The little arrow on the next to your microphone, there's a little arrow on the right. If you just click to test your audio, you may be able to jump on.
I apologize.
Well,
that's Jan.
It does say it's open, but yeah, she's having some technical difficulties. Sorry.
If you put it in the chat, Jan, we will read it out for you.
This is great.
Or just a link to your program or a link to your newsletter, anything.
And we also, as of now, we have Kimberly Bracken and Ashley Williamson from Giving Grove talking about fruit tree plantations for our May. So be on the lookout for that. It's really exciting work, and we'll confirm. And then Jan, when you're ready, we'll read out what you're going to say. Go ahead, Erica.
Tuned in thinking that Bath was going to be on. Yeah, we'll get a hold of Jack, and we'll either have him like maybe record his presentation at a time that works for him, or we'll just do it for a June meeting or a future UEC meeting. I was super excited too. I know that Jack is a licensed forester, and I ran into him when I was banding birds at the University of New Hampshire many years ago. So I'm really excited to see that he's in urban forestry, and it finds people. The field finds people, and I think it's all good folks. So it's always great to see everyone. Anything else? Happy to talk another time. Yeah, maybe we can do a combo Jan, Jack, Maine Urban Forestry Day, something like that.
Can you hear me?
And the fruit trees is really exciting as well. Oh, did it work?
Yes, we could hear you, Jan. Go ahead.
Sorry, I have multiple mics. My laptop mic doesn't work very well. Yeah, well, thanks, Phil, for calling me out. Yeah, and I appreciate your reference to me as an elder statesman. That is far from the truth. yeah, let me see here. Okay, started my video. Yeah, so I'm the state urban forestry program coordinator, and I've been at it for well, over 15 years as the state coordinator, and then prior to, I worked as the what we called at the time the community forestry technician, but what we more commonly refer to as our community engagement person prior to. So, I work with cities and towns across the state on all, urban forestry issues, but also what in Maine we more commonly refer to as community forestry, working with public forest resources, where we are engaging, the audiences that we work with, getting people out into nature to appreciate everything that it provides to us. And I'm sorry, as I was working on my mic, I wasn't really hearing what you were asking about. I did tune in today thinking Jack was going to be on. Eric, I appreciate your inviting him to talk with the group. I'm not sure what he intended to present to you all. He is a newer arborist for the city of Bath. The city of Bath has had historically an incredible urban forestry program under the leadership of a couple of different arborists that they've had. One of them, Tom Hurth, he passed away a couple of years ago, but he was just a tremendous force in urban forestry in the state of Maine, particularly because he had a depth of background in working in schools. He was previously a middle school science teacher. He wasn't afraid of working with middle schoolers. I'm terrified of middle schoolers. I've had 2 of them. They can be hateful. But so he got into the schools, and he got the schools engaged in doing all kinds of work for the city, from tree planting to conducting inventory. They instituted a building program at their technical school where they were one of the first to get a sawmill in their school and start utilizing urban trees to make all kinds of benches and tables that they use at the schools. They use at some of their public forests and their cemeteries, all kinds of great stuff. And he got kids excited about trees because he connected them, with being outside in their science classroom, and just engaging kids in a way that a lot of typical middle school teachers are afraid to do. So yeah, he built a great program and then passed it on to another arborist who was very skilled technically in continuing that work and working with students himself. And I, quite frankly, I was curious to hear what Jack had to say because I've not worked with him a whole lot in this capacity. I do know who he is, so I was interested to hear from him, and I can't add anything as to what he was going to speak to. But I would definitely be happy going forward if, we want to talk some specifics about, some of the programs that we have here in Maine. If you have particular interests in our work in the realm of community forestry, working with towns on public forest management, that's an area I think Phil would agree that I have some expertise in. I collaborate a lot across program lines with our stewardship people, as well as in the realm of forest health. So happy to be here.
That's so amazing. So amazing, Jan. I'm so glad that you came and that we connected on the call. I might send you an email separately and just if we can chat a little bit. So thank you so much for being here. And we'll figure out how to get Jack his talk either recorded or we'll do it another time here. And yeah, it's great to hear about folks who are kind of a force of nature in community and urban forestry, but to hear the community part is really nice.
And Jan does have a story about channeling her inner, what do you call it? your
Lorax.
Your inner Lorax, and it had to do with protecting the largest elm in Massachusetts. I mean, up in Maine. I'm sorry. Thank you. You want to tell that story briefly, Jan?
Sure. That's funny you should mention that, Philip, because I just had a presentation last night with a group in York County at Audubon. And I told that story yesterday, so I'll tell again. Yeah, so our American elm, our previous champion American elm, it was the New England champion American elm. It was stewarded by this wonderful man. His name was Frank Knight. He was the tree steward in the town of Yarmouth for over 50 years. When I met him 24 years ago, he was 92 at the time, and was you know, an incredibly active gentleman. So I met him when I first started managing the state's big tree program, and he took me to see his most favorite tree in his community of Yarmouth, and he drove me in this special way to see this tree. You know, not the common approach on the main roads, but from you know, little side street. And at 92, I let him drive me. He still had his license. And so, you know, he drove me up to the kind of the back side of the tree and just told me to lean forward in the car and said, you know, look up. Isn't he magnificent? You know, he referred to the tree as a person, and much because through history and his taking on the role, he learned that that particular tree had a name. The name was Herbie. And it was Herbie because of a little girl who, at the time I met Frank, was, you know, probably just post-retiree that had lived in the house adjacent to the tree, and she had grown this great affection for it. And through the course of dealing with Dutch elm's disease and pruning out sections of the tree to prevent the tree from becoming fully infected, Frank had learned that, I can't remember her name now, had named the tree Herbie because she came running out when one of the arborist crews showed up and said, no, 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 please don't cut down Herbie. And so Herbie stuck, and he went on to care for that tree for many decades to come. And later in his life, it was about 10 years ago, the tree finally did succumb to Dutch elm's disease. And in that process, the tree did have to come down, but I worked with a very diverse group of folks from the community on a project that was modeled after a project that I think took place in England called One Tree, where we fully utilized every component of that tree, from seeds to the sawdust, from milling the tree to, you know, boards and different sections that were cut up, and we auctioned those pieces off, and they were created, you know, it turned into art pieces, musical instruments, tables, furniture, all kinds of stuff. And then those pieces were then sold off and donated to the community tree program in Yarmouth. And kind of the close of you know, how the tree was utilized. One of the last pieces that was created out of Herbie was a simple shaker casket for Frank when he passed away at 104 years old.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jan. Thanks for closing us out and channeling our inner Lorax.
Yes.
Have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much, Jan. What a wonderful story. We'll see you all next month for Urban Ecology Collaborative. Good luck planting trees.